You are now about to witness the awesome, crushing might of KNUCKLE! All of the animals have gone running except for one. That being me. It'll be a long time since we've had a show like this. I just sent out the tweet to say that I'm doing the show live, but I imagine many of you won't get it in the first 3 minutes to know what I mean when I say show like this. I'll explain to you in a little bit because it's super necessary that I do explain this to you. Somebody logged in. Good. Nice to see you. The mistake, okay, a few more of you have logged in. That's nice. The mistake that a lot of casual listeners or accidental listeners or tourists make when they watch this show, their big failure to understand has everything to do with the fact that most people, when they stand in front of an audience behind a mic, well, hold on. These are the words that sum up the show in total. I'm on my way back to nowhere. I took my time with it. Could not see so clear. I'm taking a real good look at you. Real good look at your face. Of being paid back and for always nothing. All right, since, look, I know we've had some problems with the audio the last few shows. We are not going to do that anymore, that is, have problems with audio. So you have the music in the intro, and the rest of the show, God damn it. The rest of the show will be completely music free. But just to show you guys that my heart's in the right place, I actually do have a microphone. I have a lavalier mic that I can plug into the computer. See, so I am trying, but what I neglected to note is that I left the switch in the on position for the entire time. So the little battery that fuels it is dead. Now I could buy a new battery, but these cost $15. So I will buy a new battery November 1st when I get paid. Sorry. That's the reality of life on the low end. Anyways, what the mistake that a lot of people make who are casual viewers or tourists or or pedestrians that happen to wander by this show is that they think that I've fallen prey to the same disease that most humans in the world fall prey to when you put them in front of an audience behind a microphone, and that is, to a certain degree, become appealing. Punk rock became a lot less interesting to me when the performers desired to become appealing. Even if the appeal was to a select inner circle few, it was still kind of a letdown for me that to appeal held as much sway over so-called countercultural fringe elements that it did over the worst hack comedian Shecky Green-esque comedian Shecky Green, who is still alive. I'd like to track him down ever. And what I realized about the first portion of my life in a band, of my life as a musician, or as a not stand-up comedian, but doing spoken word or whatever, is that you have to do all within your power to resist that desire to appeal, because you hear comedians talk about it all the time. these loveless, unloved, you know, unfriended people, you know, who grew up thinking, I got these great thoughts, but nobody knows. And the first laugh they get, they are hooked. And what they're hooked on is approval. You know, I get lots of advice from guys who are like, yeah, Eugene, if you technical improvements, I like, hey man, maybe get a mic, that would help. Hey, you know, maybe put better lighting. Put better lighting, you know, maybe a better poster, maybe some set design. Those are improvements that, you know, functional improvements that, yeah, you're right. If I had an unlimited amount of money, I would have a desk, I'd have a mic, I'd have a set design, I'd have all that shit. However, I don't have an unlimited budget. You know, the stuff that holds no sway, like even the guy who said, hey, why don't you put a counter so we can just go straight to the points? I love that idea. Of course, the times stay exactly the same and the points are nowhere connected to the reality of what happens in the show. But I love the idea of creating the illusion that for Knuckle Up fans on the go, that they could just go straight to like the bullet points and get in, get out, nobody gets hurt. But you see, I don't care about that because I don't care about being appealing. And in actual fact, when I find myself in a situation where I through no fault of my own, am sort of compelled toward the desire to appeal, I upend that, which is why I am where I am, and you are probably in the successful place you are. And I say that all to preface the fact that I might be a little bit cranky as a result of getting blown out of the water at the US Open that just happened in Santa Cruz. Now, you know, I know guys on my team, oh, Eugene, don't be so hard on yourself. You weren't actually blown out. You were not actually blown out. Well, look, there were two guys on my division, me and another guy, and I took second place. So here's a picture from the actual event. If you can see, this is on the Instagram account. Also tweeted out to use who have Twitter. And you can see how happy I am with Coach Dream Crusher. You can also note how happy Dream Crusher is. You know, he is the one who said the things that you break when you lose are sometimes never fixed. And here he is pointing at specifically what's broken, me. So not only was this a guy who beat me at blue belt the last Open, at least there were more guys in our division. I beat one other guy. The guy that, but it was like in the last minute. If I know correctly, we both got penalized twice, 2 points. They almost canceled the fight because we were grip fighting and standing up. You know, I snapped the guy down, got an advantage, and I think we both had one advantage. So we were 2 down, 1 up, and then he rushed for the takedown. And the only reason I went down for the takedown is because I saw the color on the mat change, and I figured I'm out of bounds. This takedown won't count, and they'll restart me. No, they did restart, but they restarted him on top. And the guy got me with a north-south choke. And I hurt my arm. Whoo. That's why everybody I know who has access to painkillers, I say, give me some of those. And they're like, no. I said, what do you have, an ethical problem? And they go, yes. And they go, what do you need them for? I go, I'm a 53-year-old, martial artist. Of course I need them. Well, go to your doctor and get them. I said, I need them now. I don't need them. Oh, and and I say, I don't have friends with ethics. Sorry. Now, I have a friend in the UK with its socialized medicine genius. He's going to say, he's got like thousands, but he can't send them to me because the mail. So he'll just send me pictures of a whole Scarface-esque mound of pain pills. But I'm in pain now, hence the periodic screaming. But we're not here to talk about me, for those viewers that are viewing. This is Knuckle Up 343. I'm the host, Eugene S. Robinson, S standing for science. And we're here to talk about a few things. And one of the things we're talking about are bad orgies. Have you ever been to a bad orgy? Have you ever heard anybody complain about a bad orgy? Nah, pretty much people are just happy to be at an orgy, or post facto to be able to tell their friends, you know what, this last orgy I went to, as a person who has been to more than one orgy, I can tell you that yes, indeed, there is no such thing as a bad orgy. Okay? Now there is such a thing. Yeah. Can I go here this early in the show? There is such a thing as a bad gangbang. Okay, I hear tell. Just because 20 guys in a room with a woman whose fantasy is to be in the room with 20 guys are scared to death. And I've said this before, so you can Donna Shalala me, that she goes to the bathroom and then suddenly you're in a gay motion picture. Bunch of men standing around masturbating alone. Or, of course, when you look across the room, when she comes back from the bathroom, and there are clearly men there who do not care that she left the room, if you know what I mean. But we're not getting into that. The bad orgy analogy is very precisely this UFC fight night. Smoke up, and at one point, the Baldwin said it well, and he said, you know what? He had booked a fight like this. He had booked a fight very precisely like this, and he had said, you know, there were huzzahs and complaints and people, who's going to buy this, who's going to watch this shit, and he just, it's like he had to step out from behind the curtain, and in his best Greek chorus, you know, a stage whisper had to say, you fucking morons, this fight is not for you. And then, you know, when you put it that way, you could look back and you could see, yeah, hey, he's pretty correct. He's pretty dead on. This fight is an actual fact not for me. It's not at a time that I usually, if I hadn't have been getting my head beaten in Santa Cruz at the US Open, I'd have been training on Saturday. As it was, I was pushing my 1965 Chevy Chevelle Malibu up a hill, mostly because my distributor, my HEI, second HEI distributor crapped out. You know, dude's helping me with it, Bill Pappas at Mobile Restoration. He says, you know, maybe I'll get an MSD. You know, that's all I've ever used, Bill, an MSD. Why don't you put an MSD? It's a little bit more expensive. How much more expensive? I know guys, we could probably get it wholesale. Yeah, but, you know, it's a, hey, Bill, we've been through 2 HEIs, and it's just luck that I wasn't stranded in some godforsaken place, that I happen to be near your place. He's like, yeah, but there's no but, Bill. This is breaking my spirit. It's breaking my spirit. I can't have this car. So I spent all Saturday pushing the car around instead of getting my head beaten because UFC Fight Night Dublin was not for me. And not for you unless you live in Dublin or someplace close by where the time change is not going to fuck you. And even if that's the case, there's some of you saying, Eugene, don't give us short shrift. We don't know who these guys are either. The one clear-cut benefit, the genius benefit, the glorious benefit is that, and this is something I'll give you, it's a British film. And it's a British film that has confounded Americans, and it has never been done as a remake in America in any real way, because Americans just don't fucking understand it. And longtime fans of the show have heard me talk about this, and I'm talking about it again. We're talking specifically, I think, about the 1950s movie, The Loneliness of the Long Distance Runner. And it's about a Borstal boy, you know, who they discover, played by Albert Finney, I think, who they discover has got a great propensity for long distance running, you know? And they have this kind of competition between Borstals, which is, you know, how people in the British Isles describe, or maybe Brendan Behan, one of my favorite playwrights. He did a play called The Quare Fellow, but he also did a play, I think, Borstal Boy. So that was the first time I heard it. He's an Irish writer, so maybe it's just an Irish thing, Borstal. But so these youth prisons, and they discover that they have these contests, these racing contests, and the warden comes to him and starts kicking him all these favors. He goes, "Look, you win this for us. Ah! We'll shorten your sentence. You know, we'll do all this." And you know, they treat him like a king. Albert Finn's like, yeah, and he's running this big race for them. He's running and he's kicking everybody's ass, and he gets to within that's Popeye. He gets to within eye shot of the finish line, and he just runs off. He just and when I first saw that movie, you know, I forget sometimes that I'm an American. When I first saw that movie, the competitor, every aspect of the competitive American in me was like, what? I mean, you know, you could make an American version of that, and the American version of that would have the guy get right up to the finish line, and everybody's screaming at him to go across it, and he's looking at him like, maybe I will, or maybe I won't cross the finish line. And then the second place guy comes, and the second place guy is breaking his neck to get up there, and right at the last second, the American puts his hand across the finish line and wins it. That's the American version. The American version doesn't understand at all the guy clear-cut winner just not winning as a way to say fuck you. We have our anti-heroes, but our anti-heroes don't do shit like that. Our anti-heroes, Rocky, you know, go into a fight knowing they're gonna fucking lose, and they don't lose as badly, which means they won. You know, so and I say this by way of saying that this Smoker versus Holohan, you know, nobody expected anything from this fight with Poirier, you know, doing his 100-foot cliff dive into total stupidity. And keep in mind, I support him 100%, but you got to know, you have to remember at some point that you're Dustin. You know, remember exactly who that is and where you are. It's my favorite line from that movie, which freaking Get Rich or Die Trying, where 50 Cent is at some party and bumps into some guy, and the guy stands up, and the guy's like, yo, and 50 says, I guess you forgot where you are. You know, I guess Dustin forgot, but you know, in the end, it doesn't really matter, and I'll get to that in a second. So you know, so I say this fight is perfectly chosen because of the fact that in other places, if you go to Sweden, now I got spies in every places. After Gustafsson lost, yes, it was sad that Gustafsson lost, but I got a couple of emails from guys who had to drive back to the towns they came from outside of Stockholm, and they drove back, some in total silence, some with, you know, dancing with tears in their eyes, some with, you know, this is not information about themselves that they wanted to take home with them. No way. Not how they see themselves, not a national identity. What I love about the Irish is that it is every bit part of the national identity. And I guarantee you, somebody like Holohan, who fought a great fight, he actually moved from don't care to care. Why? Because I'm jazzed on the fucking grappling. He can't punch for shit, you know, but he was, you know, I mean, when you see a guy hit, there's a drill that I did once where a guy said 60 seconds, 60 submissions, go, and name them as you do it. And it's just, he said, get you in the habit of working, developing a flow. Even if you come with 25% in the competition, you're like, boom, 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 boom. And you know what they are, and you're thinking about them in a very studied, technical way. So when I see the hooligan, Patrick, go, yeah, he was not top of the flight. I wouldn't walk across the room to watch his fight, but I did watch his fight. And it was great to see somebody take grappling. Like, there are a couple of guys I know who are, you know, professional Muay Thai guys. They come in and they want to train jiu-jitsu. And what's really funny is that they fight, they roll like they do Muay Thai. By which, I mean, explosive, burst base, and hard, for in my mind, reasons that don't make really good sense. But you take a guy who's, you know, a super grappler and put him in MMA, and he's forcing the action by submission attempt, move, submission attempt, bounce. Holohan was great to watch. I mean, eventually, you know, he got punched out. It's funny, they let him punch him more than 1.5 times. unlike the men in the audience. But I need to make something extremely clear, exceedingly clear to you, that despite all of what I've said about Conor McGregor, the man who was standing in the stands or front row, front cage side, is that my critiques of him still stand. But I love this guy. I love this guy. You know, it's like, you know, I remember I used to date this Finnish woman, and at one point we're talking, and just as a matter of course, you know, I got to the door first, so I opened the door and I hold it for her, and she just stopped. Just, what are you doing? I go, nothing. No, what are you doing with this door? I go, walking through it. No, you're holding it. Yeah, because I was in front of you. I don't want to let it slam. I am a woman, but I am not helpless. Oh, Jesus Christ. I just walked and let the door slam, and then she could open the door herself. Point proven, I guess. This is the same one who got put out on the bridge by Billy. Eugene, he put me out. He put me out on the bridge. You got yourself a real black guy there, baby. In any case, in any case, under normal circumstances, the national pride has taken significant enough of a hit so that your fight, Joe Silva's job, and whoever that other guy, Keith, whatever his name is, I can never remember it, his job becomes infinitely more difficult, right? Because he has to what? What does he have to do? He has to kind of structure it so that people don't go home driving with tears in their eyes. You don't have to do that with Ireland. Why? Because one, the Irish are not fucking crybabies, and two, the Irish have a long history of suffering. And this, if you don't think any of those Cahill, Pendred, Holohan, you know, if you don't think those guys went out to, are going out tonight to a steady round to drink by, they lost and they win by losing. Because, you know, you went in there, you gave them what all, you know, you showed them the Irish fighters not being pushed around. You got a bad break, but you got paid like a fucking king's ransom for it, and that's what it's about. It's completely different, a completely different mindset. People in Sweden are driving home with tears in their eyes. I guarantee you this show was a success with or without McGregor in Ireland. Which is precisely why Dustin's decision, completely understandable, totally damaged him. Totally damaged him. I mean, I knew who I was fighting today. The guy who beat me at Blue Belt. 222 pounds, but I'm taller than him by about 4 inches. If at the last second, if he didn't show up, what they were going to do is going to put me in a different, the ultra heavies. You know, some members of my team were looking to me standing next to these ultra heavies, and it was like suddenly Eugene's short. And they're like, oh man, he's got his hands full. Ah! Oh, yeah, it's my elbow. It's like right here. It's like right here. Jesus Christ. As when it's here, it doesn't hurt. It's when I stretch it out. It's not like he armbarred me. It's just when we went down. I don't know. It doesn't feel like, it feels like, you know what it feels like? It feels like hyperflexion, you know? So anyway, so the science of bad orgies, there is no actual such thing as a bad orgy. You know, I even, you know, my first orgy was freshman year at Stanford, if you can believe this. And my roommate at the time, he went to the orgy, and I go, hi, how'd it work out for you? You know, because the orgy, I've never told this story. You can't actually Donna Shalala this story because I've never actually told it. But at the orgy, my very first one, people crashed the orgy. And who should crash it at the time but the Secretary of State's daughter, right? This is the first time I've publicly said this. I've been saving it. This was going to be my hedge against inflation. But of course, you'll look up the Secretary of State's daughter my freshman year, and you look to see what she looks. Crash the orgy, and things are going well until, you know, I'm actually messing with her, but then she gets deathly still, creepy like, right? So my eyes travel up her body, and I look at her eyes, and I see her looking across the room, and my eyes follow across the room, and I see she's watching her boyfriend get into it with this cheerleader from Newport Beach, whose first name was Susie. And I was like, behind, and concerned as I was about my load, I got busy. I told my roommate, who was there at the time, this shit's about to blow up. You better get busy. And so, like, within 29 seconds after I blow my load, she jumps up, grabs her clothes, starts screaming and crying, runs out of the orgy, right? Now, you don't have to be a legal genius to know a half-naked woman running through a freshman dorm, screaming, whose father happens to be the Secretary of State, is going to raise some hackles. So it was like, okay, we got to go. Get my clothes on, start to blast out of there. And as I'm walking down, you know, people are rushing back in the direction of the room. I'm like, hey, woo, dodge the bullet. And so as we're walking back, I say to my roommate, that was all right. You know, did you haul your ashes? These old-timey expressions for, you know, blowing loads. And he was like, well, no, but it wasn't about that. Wasn't about that. Hey, listen, if I go to a luau, it's not about blowing loads, you know, but if I'm going to an orgy, it's like going to a restaurant and not eating, you know. Well, plenty of times, you just go for the company. Okay. The reality of it is, to tie it back into MMA, there's not a single, I'd like to hear from you guys in Ireland, Dublin. Do you feel ripped off at this fight? Because I don't think you should. I don't think you should. The fights that I saw, and keep in mind, given my vast profusion, I absolutely positively did not care about this fight, but I felt compelled to watch at least 3 of them. Like in the old days when you ran a record label, if you got demo tape, you would listen to at least 3 songs. I felt obliged to watch at least 3 fights. And that's typically I picked the fights that everybody was talking about. So the headline fight, I watched Cattle and Breeze, Cattle Pendrin and Breeze, and it's Popeye, and one of the other ones. And sorry for the ones that don't care. I imagine I could have seen something new, something I hadn't seen before, but I had my own thing to worry about. So, sorry. So, I think that the fight, I think you actually managed to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat with this fight. I think the only clear-cut loser to this fight is Mr. Dustin Poirier, and I have to say, in total, I haven't seen any numbers for it. I don't know what the numbers said. You know, I think if you expect 0 and you get 1, you're happy. So I'm gonna have to go for a thumbs up. You know, this could have been a terrible evening. The thing is, did you have any fighters who moved enough from don't care to care to have developed a viable Ireland scene? I said, let me tell you something else. After the big push that the UFC did on the back of Michael Bisping into Britain, the fact that, when was the last time you saw a Britain card? I think this signifies and signals the fact that the bald one and Zuffa have kind of thrown in the towel on Britain. But the fact that McGregor is single-handedly keeping Ireland alive, and Ireland fans are keeping Irish fans are keeping Ireland alive, and you know, to that, look, that's no guarantee. You would think, given how huge the market is, that Britain would be a prime place. It's not. You know, you want a McDonald's on every corner? Well, you know what? You don't get a McDonald's on every corner. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you don't. And in this case, you didn't. You know, which is great for everybody except for Bisping. And I can't say it enough with this Dustin thing. You know, there are ways that that I had a friend, and his thing was he and I got into an integrity contest because he said, Eugene, you have the least amount of integrity of anybody I know. This came because girls would call for me. We were roommates. Girls would call for me, and this is in the days before cell phones. You guys don't remember what it's like. And they'd say, is Eugene there? And he would say, just a second, even though I'd be in the background going, no, ixnay. And he goes, I'm not going to lie for you. You just tell me you don't want to talk. You because man, these are social niceties. I said, okay, finally it reached a point. We'd already gotten into a fight over the phone before. He was a wrestler, third in his state, smothered me. This is before I did any grappling. And he said, you know, hold up. Oh, Eugene, hold on. And I jumped out the window because we had a first floor apartment, and I ran out into the field. And so he says, well, Eugene just jumped out the window and ran out into the field. And everybody laughed like hell because they go, who would do that? And I was great. We have a solution. Every time the phone is for me and I don't want to talk, I'll jump out the window and I'll run out into the field. And then I'll come back in when I see you hang the phone up. And then he continued. He said, you have the least amount of integrity of any person I know because I chose to jump out the window and run out into a field rather than talk to somebody I don't want to talk to. Or rather than tell that person. He was the kind of person that would tell him, hey, you know what? I don't want to talk to you right now. I'm busy. It was truthful, but he didn't have many friends. I was not as truthful, and I had lots of friends. That's not even the question. I tricked you there. The real question is, who was happier? And I'd venture a guess that he was happier. So with all my stage managing, I managed to do what? Be largely miserable. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Dustin Poirier. Okay, Dustin, Duffy's out. You gotta. I don't feel like it. Dustin, you know what? I don't feel like it. Now he might have done something that didn't make him happy. He could have done something that didn't make him happy. He could have said, oh, well, let's see. Oh, I got a bad case of food poisoning. Oh, I fell down the stairs. Oh, there's been a death in my family. I can't. Oh, any other number of half a dozen excuses that would have gone down better than, I don't have to, it's not that easy. It's complicated. Johnny Boney Joni can do it. Dustin Poirier can't. Dustin Poirier, who on the show before I was calling Duncan Poirier. That tells you something. And speaking of Johnny Boney Joni, you know what? You guys, I was sounding the clarion cry for concern because I was smelling confusion in the water. I was getting reports from liquor stores in New Mexico, dudes coming in at closing time, I was getting reports from strip clubs in New Mexico, dudes showing up at strip clubs. None of these things are things that should impugn a man's character. Except if that man is looking at jail time for crashing into a pregnant woman whose arm is broken and he runs away with the, you know what I mean? But I think I read that all wrong. I think I read those signs all wrong. I think this was, again, clever stage management. Dustin Poirier would be punished because he managed the stage poorly. You got the stage. You're not getting another freaking headline show ever, maybe. And you had it and you managed it. You managed it poorly. Johnny Boney Joni, on the other hand, is probably a pretty clever mathematician in the sense of when my case gets adjudged, no matter how they go, I'm on dry island. I'm on dry island for God knows how long. It could be 3 years. It could be 4 years. It could be one of these incredibly punitive probation things that nobody could possibly. You can't hang out with known felons. You can't hang out with known felons. How do I know if they're a felon? Well, that's the key. If they're known to you to be felons, you can't hang out with them. I don't know who of my friends is a felon. What are you gonna? It's like that thing with the date rape thing. Consent. It can't be passive. It has to be active consent. Assent. You have to say, can I take off your top? Yes, you may. Can I take off your bra? Yes, you may. Can I put my hands on your breast? Yes, I may. Can I? Yeah. But you know what? I like it because it makes you think about it, the whole process. Because, you know, I'm probably not alone in having had precisely in my life 2 women who then publicly later said, you know, I never wanted to be that way with you, Eugene. Oh, really? Really? People who never really want to be that way with me typically don't invite me over to their houses, tell me if I want to stay a little bit longer, I should put a few logs on the fire, and then come down to snuggle with me in front of the fire wearing nothing. I never wanted to be that way with you, yeah, sure. I got it. So, you know, so my point with Jonbonesjonesi is that seeing that he was going to get this incredibly punitive long-term, I'm now re-engineering what he was doing, all the rumors, gossip, and innuendo that comes my way as a result of you guys listening to the show and being my ear. I'm not in New Mexico. What do I know? But you're, you know, my ears and eyes on the street, you know, like, yeah, because why? Because I'll come on and slap allegedly in front, in the middle, or at the end of something. And you know, like the Blue Elmore James said, don't tell me nothing. Don't start me talking. I'll tell you everything I know. It's precisely why I'd make the world's, okay, all 17 of you, how you doing? You know, I make the world's worst spy. Well, shit, you know, yeah, I saw that guy. He was there that guy's an alcoholic. Every time I'm in that bar, he's there. I was there this morning, he was there. I was there for lunch, he was there. I was there after dinner, he was there. That guy's an alcoholic. Yeah, that guy. So Jonbonesjonesi, he's going to strip clubs. He's not, you know, he's not having people. He's just doing what he knows he will absolutely not be able to do, because I'm getting information now about how he's addressing his community service, and dude seems to be, compelled and driven. And this little past week's Twitter thing with him and Daniel Cormier, you know, where he says to DC, you know, you're not a legitimate champ. You know I'm the champ. And DC says, grow up. Okay. You know what hurts? You know, the most hurtful people I've ever known are those people who tell the truth. Those people who look at me and say, Eugene, you know, you might be lost battalion. Did you look at your teammates' faces after you lost at the US Open and say, oh man, now I know what I need to work on before the Worlds in November? And did you see them all go like this? Yeah, buddy. You know what? And to that end, I got a prescient. I don't know if the guy wants me to mention his name. I got a pretty compellingly prescient email from one of yous. I'll just use his first name, Luke. And he says, I'm going to read it to you verbatim. You catch the fights, don't want to spoil anything if you haven't, but 2 fighters, one a winner and the other a loser, said some things I found very interesting and surprisingly honest. It was concerning the reality that 99% of competitors that even make it to the UFC never amount to anything of note and will be cast out of the system no better off than they entered it. They seemed totally content with that fact, whereas so many of their colleagues, while in reality, just as cat creeping out here. They seemed totally content with that fact, whereas so many of their colleagues, while in reality just as hopeless and destined for nowhere, act as though they're only one more fight away from really getting someplace. Sort of an inverted lost battalion, which is, I'm dead, but I don't give a shit. And my response to him was, which is okay. And how many men seem to make it through combat working with a starting position of, I'm dead. After that, everything is gravy. If it's I'm dead, And I think, again, this loops back into the fact that Ireland is a very different place. Hold on. Okay, here's the thing where I throw something at the cat and then the poster falls. But all I have is my wallet, and even in the best of times, I'm not really prone to be throwing my wallet. I will throw the slipper that I have if he doesn't stop. Sorry. God. Jesus Christ, help me. You know, okay, I got the slipper. And it's my slipper. So I mean, this is one of the things that makes Ireland such a special place, and fundamentally why I think that Ireland will be the place over there that where MMA, you know, they love it. Their guys are doing well. One of their top guys is a guy they pushed in Britain with Bisping, and it's not just Bisping. You got, you know, friend of Knuckle Up, Ed, what's the cat's name? Hardy, is that his name? No, I can't. Not Ed Hardy. Is the T-shirt guy. Can you guys text me when this is going on? Dan Hardy. Thank you. Dan Hardy, who had his moment, who was a friend of Knuckle Up, really great guy, but not in control of enough of the it factor to be able to swing things their way. No way. So, you know, I think, you know, in this time, you have to understand this is tri-level chess. Tri-level chess. You know, they are thinking about things along the lines of, they are very specifically thinking about things along the lines of multiple markets, you know, multiple markets, I mean, it's not just fighters. No, it's not just fighters. And it's not just, okay, let's see. It's not just, I mean, we're dealing with markets. We're dealing with other promotions. We're dealing with fighters. We're dealing with unions. We're dealing with governmental organizations. And all of these have their own special playing field. And if you're focused on the trees, you will lose the forest. You know, don't think for a second that because, you know, the bald one drops a few F-bombs, that job is not incredibly hard. You know, I mean, you would be flying off the handle just as well. He gets paid well for what he does. There's no tears for me. Don't cry for me, Argentina, the bald one says. This doesn't exist. It doesn't exist at all. However, you know, he took shit in Shinola, turned it into something, you know, workable, found a place to do it. It's Britain's loss. Part of the reason, yes, you didn't have any it guys. You know, the thing is, I used to love Dizzy Rascal. And I was talking to one of my UK friends, my friends in London, and they were like, fuck Dizzy Rascal. Because what sounds foreign and cool and kind of into the American ear is just like, that's that asshole from down the street. Talking to another friend of mine in the UK, and I'm like, yeah, hey, you know, man, did you ever like the Specials? Because the Specials, no, they were fucking pricks. College frat boy pricks. Something completely lost in an American audience. I never would have gotten it. Now, why do you think Morrissey lives in LA? Why do you think he's so cranky? It's in the blood. It is in the blood. However, I think Britain has, you know, it's just got too much of an installed base. It's too invested in boxing. It's been doing it for a long time. And, you know, the numbers of Americans I know who are working in Britain, very low. And this goes macro as well. They're just not going to have it. You know, they tried fights in Manchester and people showed up. Fights in London at the O2 set, people showed up. They showed up. But you know what? It's not who shows up. It's how much you have to pay per seat to get them to show up. I'm asking you guys to think business macro. However, to close off my point with Jonbonesjonesi, you know, his taunting, what you call it taunting, his tweeting and deleting with Daniel Cormier sends a really serious message. Just as serious as, if you did that, I will literally kill you. Literally kill you. You know what? You get a guy to the edge. I mean, this was my big concern with Jonbonesjonesi, that you know, like David Lee Roth went to the edge and I stood and looked down. Lost a lot of friends there, baby. Yeah. And I thought that he'd get to the edge. He would be like, fuck it. Lamar Odom. Screw that. $75,000, 2 whores, and lots of drugs. I'll see you in 24 hours or months. You know? I mean, he stayed. He didn't go back home to Rochester or whatever. And, you know, I don't know what his brother said to him. I don't know what Malky said to him. I'm not privy to any of that with Jonbonesjonesi. Not at all. But my question always was, where's his head going to be? And I think his head was like, you know, when they clear this, if I get a chance to do this again, I'm going to kill it. You won't find me Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods, what happens when the man's mother, you know, is not just getting caught with your penis in 16 barmaids and your father dying and losing your kids and getting your wife chasing you and being supremely public and then having all your shit put on full blast. That's not it necessarily. It's that you realize so much of this shit is voodoo. And part of one of the reasons why Jonbonesjonesi is a champ is because of that willful connection to Providence, in belief that he is, you know, quote Travis Bickle, God's lonely man, a chosen one. In his mind, it is inconceivable to him that Daniel Cormier will beat him. And Daniel Cormier wants to take some time off. He's trying to give him a shake by saying, do the fight sooner rather than later, because I don't want you complaining about you being too old. You know, I knew a guy who was out of jiu-jitsu for about 2 years. And when he came back, he was really good when he left. When he came back, he couldn't tap me. And he was trying to explain what happened. It wasn't like I had gotten super better. He's like, I can see the moves in my head. And I just can't make my body do them fast enough. Call it confidence, call it whatever you will. Johnny wants the best of DC. And that's if he's even giving a fuck about what's going on in light heavyweight. You know, Gus is like, I'm only fighting for the championship. Man, oh man of Shevitz. Man, oh man of Shevitz. It's getting crowded here in the Lost Battalion. You know, it's getting pretty crowded. But I can tell you the air is just fine. I believe honestly that I am in the Lost Battalion here, because I don't have any clocks around here that run backwards. You know, there comes a point where guys just gotta get up from the table and walk away. You know, they didn't think there was anybody in my division, because why? I was born in 1962. That's why. So I'm going to blame, what do I say? I'll just read you if you're not Eugene S at Eugene S Robinson on my Twitter thing, I'll just read you what I said. It sums it up quite nicely. Quite nicely. It says, second place, silver medal, ? Not when you have 2 guys in the division. Let the blame-a-thon begin. My hand. Okay, my finger got caught in Patrick's shirt on Thursday. You can't see it. But yeah, you can see it actually. This knuckle here, swollen. I can't jam my hand in my pocket. It hurts. I had to tape up these 3 fingers. Excuse number 1. My back. Hurt my back. What can I say? Excuse number 2. Pushing too hard. It happens before every fight. I finally realized it's because I'm pushing too hard. God, that's also self-explanatory. The sun, and last but not least, Coach Leopoldo, Dream Crusher Sorrell. Without, you know, a guy spends 4 years telling you how horrible you are. It may happen that you become horrible. Without whom none of this would be possible. Specifically, my long, unblemished record of jiu-jitsu failures. Ha, ha, ha. Ha, 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 ha. It's that bitter, mirthless laughter that brings everyone down. And I'm standing actually on the second place silver medal thing next to the guy. And the guy who took first place was like, I'm standing like this. And the guy says, come on, smile. I go, it's easy for you to say. He's like, I was like, I'm going to be captain, bring down, I'm going to fuck the morale of everybody. The official photographers taking photos like, come on, you cheer up, you got a medal. And I was like, medal? Medal? I'll bring you with this medal. I mean, of course, for me at this point, it was masterpiece theater time. Anyway, that is done. I'm telling you right now, anybody involved with this thing should be considering it yeah, go ahead, say it. A success. It was a success in my mind. It was a success. Pat yourself in the back, live it and love it. It was a great fight. I mean, it was a great the fights on the card that I watched. But I really think the amount of joy you brought to people in Dublin, having spent a lot of time in Dublin, I can say that was not feigned. Everybody, like Chuck Dukowski from Black Flag said to me at one point, the issue was small audiences. And he was like, the reality of it is, it's not the fault of the people who show up that nobody else showed up. It's not the fault of Houlihan that Duffy got brained or whatever happened to him. He got a concussion. And you know what? They wanted to bury that Duffy story as fast as possible because they don't want people thinking about guys in MMA getting concussions. In fact, what they would probably say is nobody's getting concussions in the cage at a UFC in Dublin on Saturday. So next up is UFC Fight Night 77. I'm going to completely ignore the UFC 193 Ronda versus Holly because I don't think that I think they've even given up trying to push that one. Am I wrong? I could be wrong about that, but it seems like they've given up. So UFC Fight Night 77 is Vitor Belfort, accusations of drug use flying, and Dan Henderson 3. And this has got, I'm not going to cheat, care, don't care. We'll be doing it this week. Kid Nate and I, as well as If I Did It, to handle the PR heavy lifting. My mother's most favorite MMA show I do is the If I Did It. So be that as it may, you should tune in. It's getting a lot of love. People seem to love it. So there are a couple of like Clay Guida, Thiago Tavares, Tavares, man, they had some great hits. Gleason Tebow, Trujillo, Fabio Maldonado, Corey Anderson, Magomedov, Piotr Hallman. I mean, there are a lot of fighters on this fight that I care about. Of course, I will be reporting on this fight. Glover Teixeira, Patrick Cummins, and then, of course, Belfort and Henderson, squeezing the last bit of juicy goodness out of Henderson and Belfort as well. Eugene, will we have 2 additional people in the Lost Battalion after this fight? Come on. Lost Battalion is predicated on not knowing your Lost Battalion. Both of these guys do not see themselves 5 years from now in fighting in the UFC. They are no Ken Shamrock. Speaking of which, the rumor I had has now been debunked about Shamrock fighting Eugene Jackson in February and March Bellator. Eugene Jackson may or may not be fighting, but he's guaranteed us the exclusive when the decision has been made. So, that fight we'll deal with on the Care Don't Care, and If I Did It, we'll deal with the PR kerfuffles, of which I'm sure come tomorrow morning, Monday, there will be many. Right now, I'm ending the show, so I can go take the one Vicodin. I got one dusty lint stuck Vicodin that I will take to deal with this arm thing I got, and the finger, and you know what? You know what they say? Never kick a man when he's down. To which I say that is the best of all possible times to kick him. So bring it on. That's it. And keep in mind, I'm doing a really interesting thing here. Not only am I taking full responsibility for the loss, I'm owning it completely. I'm also taking no responsibility for the loss by putting it off on everybody else as well. So it's a paradox, you know, it's a riddle, it's a conundrum, but it's how I roll. So this is round 343. And I'm your host, EUGENE S. Robinson, S for Science of Bad Orgies. I've got fight books, $35. You send some PayPal cash to pinko95014 at unless you're in Canada, in which case you got to add $15 on it. Sorry for shipping. I also got the audio book. Oodles of that. Oodles. I'll be glad to send you some. It was the worst selling double CD in Hydra Head's history. And they got talked into printing up that many by HarperCollins, who wanted them to print up 5,000. And they said, well, we're not going to do 5,000. We'll do 2,000, but you know. So there you go. This is the end of 343. I'm going to go take some Vicodin. I lost. It was my fault. And curiously, it wasn't my fault. We got November 7th coming up. November 7th, I will be able to moan and groan about, well, let's think positively. I'm going to the world's no gi. This thing, this US Open was gi. I'm not a gi guy. Yeah, loophole. Now, I took second place in no gi last time I was at the Worlds, but I was also, there were more guys in division. Second place is fine by me if there are more than 2 guys in the division. So we'll be doing this show after Henderson and Belfort and after my stunning march to redemptive victory. How do you like that? And barring that, we'll truck out the Dream Crusher and have him explain why he's such a poor coach. Anyway, that's it. I'll see you soon. I love you, baby. No!